Hi everyone. So welcome to today's webinar. This is Ramanuj from LawSikho, and we have Ajar Rab from Rab Rab. Uh, Ajar, before we go into much more, why don't you tell us about your background and also about Rab Rab, the law firm, and how you have been, how long has it been, and what has been like some basic information to get started.
Okay, so I'll begin with the fact that my parents both are lawyers, right? They had been practicing in Missouri and Dehradun, and my father used to off and on appear in the Supreme Court. Uh, and then my brother originally did not want to do law. He then later on decided to do law. I wanted to do law. Then all of us gradually came together, and my sister-in-law is also a lawyer. Ultimately we thought that if all of us are doing the same uh, working in the same area, then it makes more sense to consolidate into a firm, because anyways Uttarakhand had recently been formed, and I at that time actually was in still in law school, so the idea of the firm was actually my brother's idea, and along with my sister-in-law. And obviously after that I moved to Amarchand, uh, and I came back, and it made more sense because there was so much in the state that was happening. A lot of investments were coming in. People were looking for professional advice. Even when I was at Amarchand and I used to talk to a lot of my colleagues, they used to say that we need a good local counsel. So we all felt that there is this market that exists, and if you're anyways practicing law, why not consolidate it and actually set up a full service law firm which actually can deliver on the professional aspects as well. Not just any local council which understands terms like con call or outstation travel and things like that. So that was a broad idea from where we came from, and we're lucky in that sense that we got a first mover advantage in a certain sense. So that's the broad background of the firm, and I think my brother started it in about 2005 when like I said, I was still in law school. Sorry, not 2005, 2010, and then gradually, we kind of try to build around it, see what areas we could enter into, things like that.
Understood. When I remember a few times visiting Dehradun, and if I ever asked anybody, so are there any law firms here? They'll say Rab Rab, right? And that was like the. It seems that you have built a law firm with great local recognition, uh, and it's like that. You have built up a brand over the years. But if you can tell us, like, what are some of the highlights of your journey in the law firm, and some of the proud moments of Robin.
Okay, so I actually would like to begin with a bit of a downer, if you can call it. A lot of people see a lot of success today. Like you said, there's great brand recognition. People are talking about this firm called Rub and Rub, but it wasn't always easy, right? We had to struggle to convince people that we are a good law firm, even though we're a family-run firm. We are professional in our way of working. Initially, clients were very skeptical of this idea of what is a law firm, especially in small towns. And given that my parents were already lawyers, half the time we would have clients come up and say, I know your father, I know your mother, you can just do this for free. There were those teething challenges in telling people that, look, we are not trying to sell you the same old traditional, the way you understand lawyers, right? So it was very new for people here that we are responding on emails, that we are actually calling them up and telling them, look, you have a client hearing, you have a hearing tomorrow. Otherwise it's always the other way around. You have this traditional notion of people waiting in the offices of lawyers for 2 to 3 hours. So in that sense, we were trying to create a market which didn't exist. So it came with a lot of challenges. And initially, when you said, okay, we are doing an hourly billing, people are like, what is an hourly billing? Why should you be billing hourly? We don't understand these concepts. But gradually, I think as more and more law firms in Delhi and Bombay kind of started supporting us, and I must thank a lot of my alumni in helping me. I must also thank a lot of friends from Delhi and Bombay who, you know, even though they didn't know Rab and Rab, they kind of still had that faith and believed in me personally. So they would send matters. And I think some of the highlights, if you would like to think of it in that sense, are some of the big clients that we've represented. We've represented big clients like Rakesh Roshan. My brother recently represented the movie Article 15, the production house there. Um, I've been working with almost all law firms now across the country in terms of due diligences and corporate transactions. So, I mean, we've represented Facebook, Birla Tires, and things like that. So it's been a journey, but I think it all came very gradually, and it came with a fair amount of struggle as well, because I still remember that there was a time when somebody from Bombay called us and we said, "This is what we will be charging," and they said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, because that's our professional service." But and you could sense the tone in the voice, which was like, "I'm calling you from Bombay. That should be enough. You should possibly do it for free." So we've had those challenges as well, where we had to tell people that, look, you might be calling us from Bombay, but we don't practice under a cowshed either. I mean, we know our law. So we've had in-house counsels call up and say, do you even know what you're talking about? I mean, have you sought an opinion from a senior counsel and things like that? So I mean, it setting up in a smaller city has its
Has
own
its challenges,
challenges that
right?
way.
People assume that you are not running, a good law firm, and just because you're from a smaller city, then it must be like, I mean, I guess it reflects not on so much on your firm, but more on the experience people have when they try to work in smaller cities with lawyers.
Yes, I think it's that. I think it's a mixed bag actually, because there are firms who come to us after they've had their SAR experiences with certain local councils.
Yeah, yeah,
So I mean, it to a certain extent, I think that it's the problem is on both sides. Sometimes lawyers in our fraternity don't deliver in the same kind of professionalism that they promise. And also, there is this traditional mindset that what is a guy going to do in Dehradun? You know, what
right.
kind of lawyer would he be anyway?
If they are a good lawyer, why are they in Dehradun? And that's the next question I want to ask you. Like, when we see, of course, like we keep saying that there is tremendous potential in our tier two, tier three cities, but as far as law firms are concerned, you find them only in a few big cities. In fact, there are not, even in quite some very big cities, you hardly have any law firms. uh, for example, if you look at Jaipur, city like Jaipur, which has had tremendous growth, or Indore, there are hardly any law firms, right? Maybe, if you want to think of proper structured law firms, there may be one or two. And so, why is that? Like, do you have, from your experience, you must be able to tell us. Like, you gave us a glimpse already, but why is it that there are no law firms in our tier two cities, which are basically contributing billions of dollars to our GDP? There's massive amount of real estate work going on in tier 2, tier 3 cities. There's a massive amount of litigation happening, and there's a lot of economic activities, simply speaking. How come there is not enough, yeah, not that many law firms?
I think the answer to that is manifold. It's not a one straight simple answer. One answer is that you know to survive as a law firm, you need a very good team. And usually, and I don't mean it in a bad way, a lot of people don't want to come back to tier two cities. One, because there are no law firms, and two, as an existential crisis, you need more people to actually have the bandwidth to take on large transactions, right? So that I think is a chicken and egg problem. But the bigger thing is that nobody really knows what kind of work they're venturing into, right? As a small law firm or in a tier two, tier three city, not many have an idea as to what's going to happen and whether they're going to survive. So that also is a contributing factor. The third, I believe, is that there is no swag in it. It doesn't appeal to anybody. So even if tomorrow, see, my parents were lawyers, so it was easier convincing them of the idea. I mean, my brother did the greater part of it. But even when we started, my parents used to be slightly worried as to what we're really doing because they hadn't seen this model before, right? And similarly, when people go back, parents are skeptical, clients are skeptical. You don't know what you're venturing into. Now you spend, and if you have to project yourself as a firm, you need people, you need infrastructure, you need a good, decent looking office. And a lot of times people don't want to invest in all that because there is no swag or, like I said, cool factor in saying, I'm a lawyer from Dehradun or I'm a lawyer from Jaipur, right? Everybody wants to be in the thick of the action, which is Delhi or Bombay. So even if, let's assume there is a fresh graduate graduating from a very good university, they want to be in Delhi attending the NAS Foundation case because they think it makes for better conversation, PR, social media posts. But and this is what I want to tell people is that the same kind of work happens in lower courts as well. It's just that it takes time before you can spot it.
Right. So you are saying that it there is a glamour attached to working in a bigger city. So if somebody wants to start a law firm and they're in a position to start a law firm, they would rather start it in a bigger city rather than in a smaller city. Although there may be more financially and work-wise, there are enough opportunities in a city like Dehradun or any tier two or tier three city for that matter, right?
Yes, I think it's not only the glamour factor. I'm not saying that that's the only reason, but I'm just saying that a lot of people don't want to come back because you don't believe in your own brand, right? You don't want to be selling the brand that I am from a tier two city. And because of that, it makes it even more difficult for clients and people to believe in what you're really trying to do. Also, because your billables are not as high in a tier 2, tier 3 city, the concept of a firm, then you come down to the point of why don't I just do individual practice? Why am I incurring so much of expenditure running this big office? So there are
But in the end of the day, Ajar, tell me if I'm wrong. There is work, right? There is tremendous amount of work. So and probably most of those clients are not getting properly addressed because if let's say now you have even startups and startup incubation centers in tier three cities in India, right? And tier two cities definitely. And you do not have a law firm which can give advice on investment law, which means those people have to necessarily go to a law firm outside town. And not only that, it's just startups is one easy example that comes to mind, but there is so much RERA work happening. There's so real estate law firms in Bombay have done so well. In Delhi they have done so well. You have massive amount of I mean, what seems obvious to me is that there is manufacturing being set up. There must be employment law work. So if you can throw some light on that, what are the opportunities in these cities, and what are the areas of work where I mean, of course, you can talk about Dehradun, but also across India, what do you think is the nature of the opportunity?
Thank you. I think that's a very great question, Ramanuj, because even when I moved back, and I used to chat with my colleagues in Delhi, they used to ask me, is there even work there? And the fact of the matter is that bigger cities are getting saturated. If you see, a lot of these big companies are now moving their factories and their offices to, or they're expanding into smaller cities. Like you have a Marriott now in Mussoorie. There's an Hyatt coming. You have ITC coming. Similarly, you have Hero Motors setting up a plant. There's a Boeing factory likely to be set up in Uttarakhand. Similarly, a lot of these big companies are looking for huge tracts of land. And then obviously there is the state incentive in having these bigger companies. And I'm not getting into the economics of it at all. But what I feel, and this is why I took that leap of faith in coming back, is that these are states that are going to go up. They're basically like stocks waiting for investments,
So
right?
in many cities, the GDP at a local level is like 20% compared to like other states when it was 5-6%, right? So in the whole as a country we're doing 5-6%, but in cities that were growing so rapidly, like there were some years where Vizag as a city had 160% growth in real estate. I've just imagined 160% in a single year, right? So imagine the amount of work that has been generated, and it's a sad thing that many of them are not getting advice that they need, the legal quality legal advice they need, and they have to step out of their to go to Bombay or Delhi to get the advice, go to Bangalore to get that advice, and often it doesn't work out. It's just the physical distance is a problem. And the other thing I want to say is that if physical distance is not a problem, then there's a great opportunity for lawyers in smaller cities to cater to clients in bigger cities, because if we are all getting comfortable with remote working and or working online, then of course that opportunity also arises. So I just wanted to know about that also. If you can throw some light on, have you been able to do work sitting in Dehradun on a pan India basis?
Well, I have been doing work on a pan-India basis, absolutely. I'm actually doing work. Most of my arbitration practice is now overseas, and I'm doing that from Dehradun. And whenever I travel abroad, the first question I am asked is, well, how are you in Dehradun and doing international arbitration? But that's the beauty of it, like you mentioned, right? With technology and transnational jurisdictions and conflict of laws not being that much of a problem, you can actually do all kinds of work. So I'm doing advisory work sitting here. You're well aware. I think I do international policy consulting for a firm in Israel. So it's, where you are does not matter that much as long as you're giving professional advice and good advice. And one thing I want to touch upon is something you mentioned, is that people are looking for good advice, but they're not getting it, right? Which is why they are forced to go to Bombay or Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, and they struggle because, and then once they reach there, then in effect through a firm or some other contact, they ask, do you have any local counsel in Jaipur, Udaipur? I personally have referred three or four matters to my friends in Jaipur. We often look for counsels in Shimla. Then even in Nagpur, Kanpur, many other cities where, for example, Allahabad, even though you would think that Allahabad is full of lawyers, but uh, I mean, there are so many discussions happening on our alumni networks where we want somebody specialized in that area, in that field of law. So there is a big dearth of competent people in tier 2, tier 3 cities. Same goes for IPR. As of now, I'm advising a foreign investment in Udaipur, and you would wonder why they have come all the way to me in Dehradun when Delhi is so much closer to them, right? But the idea is that they think that a smaller firm is easy on their billables, like the invoices are not so high. Plus, there is a direct interaction with partners and everybody involved, and they can actually voice their concerns directly. A bigger firm might just not be the right fit, especially for startups. So we are advising on a couple of IPR issues, even though we don't do filings. And then again, this is the reverse thing that you were talking about a couple of minutes back. We also send matters to bigger firms, right? We also send matters to IPR firms in Delhi. We are also advising a lot of companies based in Calcutta and Delhi, where they have some sort of business in Uttarakhand, but because of, let's just say, the way that we worked with her or with the client, they want us to be advising them on their Calcutta transaction as well. Simply as a reference point or a second opinion to the kind of advice they've received in Calcutta or Bombay. So it's both ways. I don't think it's a one-way relationship where bigger cities are sending work to smaller cities. Like you said, the investments are happening here. It's the smaller cities also sending work to bigger cities.
Right, and I think that smaller cities in the future will see a trend when smaller cities will take away work from bigger cities because of their cost advantage.
Absolutely, I think there's a lot of I think Ramanuj, you and I were commenting on a page a couple of years back where they said that the hourly model is dead, and smaller law firms are the next big thing because people have realized, and like you've seen the recent Indigo transaction, they simply hired a bunch of in-house lawyers and completed their M&A deal. So people are realizing that the model in law firms where of charging exorbitant rates might not be the best fit.
Right. So, by the way, I just want to tell you that we have 306 people in the webinar right now. If you haven't noticed, and
That's quite a number.
it seems to be one of the most popular webinars right now.
Well, then the
in
credit
fact,
goes
in
to
fact, I knew that there's a cap of 300, and we have already crossed 300. It's 307. I don't know how we are 307 because we have. I thought we have a cap of 300 on Zoom in our subscription. So anyway, great. So this is awesome. Uh, you know, my thought is that uh, somehow there is a lack of role models in this space, and in a way, Rab and Rab, you are creating that role model, and of course, not enough people know about it. The fact that you can run a professional firm in a tier two city and do excellently, because what we hear, like, I travel a lot and go to smaller cities and personally meet lawyers there. What I hear there is a lot of frustration that, we don't have enough work. All the work is done by seniors, or they're like children of judges getting all the work, etc., etc. But they do not see the opportunity that exists. Like, everybody is chasing a very small pie of work, which is those read petitions and services matters, and a few criminal matters, right? So is that what it is the opportunity is not there, right? Like, where is the how would you describe the demand supply mismatch in that is happening right now in these tier 2 tier 3 cities? Why are lawyers missing the forest that exists right there in front of them? And I mean, it makes every logical sense from what, and you are what your success is a proof of what is possible, right? And why is it that lawyers across these smaller towns are completely failing to capitalize on this amazing opportunity ahead of them? Are they even trying, for that matter?
Well, I think that there's an asymmetry of information actually. When you think of, let's tomorrow, for example, think we want to go back to Kanpur or Bareilly and practice law. You will not think of M&A, you will not think of arbitration, you will not think of IPR. You will think of your traditional civil and criminal dispute litigation, right? But that's exactly the point. I mean, there were so many times that I've heard this, that when I moved back, people simply said, "Oh, he's just going back to eat what his father and mother have built. He's just going there to continue their practice." And one of the reasons I actually branched off from what my parents or my family was doing and entered into arbitration and RERA and DRT and all those things is to prove to them that there is much more than civil and criminal happening around the city. There is an entire market of people looking for advice on labor regulations, on Shops and Establishments Act, on how to create a company. The one of the biggest and funniest moments I'll tell you is, I was doing this foreign investment for a client in Netherlands. He was buying a resort in Rishikesh, and the local partner simply said, "What is a company? It's a partnership." He invested 50%, I invested 50%, and he did not understand what a board resolution is, right? So you have these challenges, but then if you as a lawyer are equipped and you have had good education or good courses or good certifications, and you can convince people that, look, why this model is good, why this model is bad, suddenly they start believing in you. And you start opening up that market beyond civil and criminal disputes.
Basically, you have an opportunity to add tremendous value, because somebody who doesn't even know the basics, you can, I mean, first of all, the threshold is very low, right? You're able, even if you're a very young lawyer, you would be able to add value in to such clients, right? Even I would say somebody who has just graduated, even a law student can go add value to such a person.
Well, I'll give you a personal example of that, and that might make sense. So what had happened was, this client of mine actually flew down a bunch of lawyers from Allahabad, very senior counsels. Two of them were senior counsels, white hair, everything. And I was simply the filing counsel as the local counsel. And after I filed, the obviously the Allahabad lawyers left, and the client just, we were just having tea as a courtesy. And he started discussing the case with me, and there are a couple of things I mentioned. And 2 days later, I got a text from him saying, "I don't need those senior counsels. I think you're competent enough to handle the forum." Right? So it's one of those things. It's basically that the burden is on us to prove that we are actually that good. And I know that this white hair bias exists, and it exists for a good reason. I'm a firm believer in seniority for two reasons. One, the seniority exists in the Advocates Act, right? So the entire the way you are created exists on seniority. And secondly, the white hair stands for a lot of things: how to deal with the client, how to deal with the judge's mood, several things. But then there is a core value that you can have. You have tech support. You can Google that RBI notification immediately and tell your client, "Look, under clause 3, you could have done this." And that is where your edge lies. In all these tier 2, tier 3 cities, like you mentioned, that, it's basically a bunch of lawyers eating all the pie. Well, those bunch of
Focusing
lawyers,
on a very small pie, whereas the market is very big and nobody is even going to them, right?
exactly. So that's the entire point. That there is a pie, but there is a pie that you can add. You don't actually have to take away from that pie. Okay, there's one person's who's commented, and I would like to respond to that. It's okay to take clients like that. Well, that's a good question from Anubha from Bangalore. Anubha, I did not take away the client. The client messaged me saying you're competent enough to handle it. I said thank you, and I called up the senior counsel and said this is what the client has told me. There is ethics at every point. And that senior counsel then still came for the next hearing, but said, young man, I want you to argue, I will stand with you. So it's not always a zero sum game. You can always add value wherever you are. And surprisingly, the senior counsel has referred 5 more matters to me after that. Right? So
Right.
it's not that we are trying to fight for the same share, but and I agree that not always people will see merit and they will stick to their old notions of things. But then somewhere down the line, you have to add value, right? You have to demonstrate that you're good enough.
Yeah, yeah. So this on that line, just right now, I have a comment where I was thinking of taking up questions later. So Divanshu Gupta from Jaipur is saying my journey is typically the same as Ajar. I shifted from Cam Mumbai to litigation in Jaipur last year. Clients often don't take us seriously because of inexperience or lack of gray hair. So what you said just now, Ajar, is that this is an issue, right? People have to trust you and people have to see value in you. And there are enough people in this session who have gray hair who will confirm that gray hair alone doesn't help. It's a myth, right? So, but here is the thing, I mean, the way I see is that there are enough people who want to work with younger people, and there are people who want to work with older people. Like, what is this experience factor in your experience? Like, how have you dealt with it, and what has been your experience?
See, I think that I'll answer that in 2 parts. The first is that yes, we are inexperienced. Yes, we don't have gray hair. But then again, like I said, the burden lies on us to prove that we are good enough, right? If you give a solution to a client, or if you even propose that this could have been an alternative argument, the client will get impressed, right? And even though the client might stick to their old lawyer or senior lawyer, for the next matter, they might actually come to consult you first and see what your opinion is.
Exactly. So the question is whether you are stepping up and offering value to people without even expecting anything in return. And if you do that frequently enough, you get clients. So I was just being told by like, so we did another webinar with Suhas Paliga from Bombay. He runs a venture capital focused law firm, and he shared something very interesting. He said that one of his very good marquee clients one day decided to leave him, and when he tried to figure out what the hell happened, he figured out that there was a senior partner from a big law firm who has been giving free services to the client. Free services doesn't mean that he is doing a transaction document or something, but has been giving free stuff, advice, helping out for last 6 months, built a relationship to the point that they left. Okay, and this is something that big law firms do. For some reason, young lawyers feel that they want to act like senior counsels, that they will sit in their chambers and people will come with briefs and tell them, sir, please mera bhi matter le lijiye. Now that is a different volume. That's not what I think is necessary at all. If senior partners of big law firms go out and do business development actively, and you don't, you have to do it too. I mean, there's no question. And I think what Ajar said is absolutely golden. That reach out to people, add value to them, and soon they will want to work with you. What we teach in our students in our courses, by the way, like we try to help them to get clients and get jobs, internships, and always the mandate is that we have a placement office to help them, and the mandate is always all the exercises are like this, that you reach out to people. So, for example, you go to a startup and you start helping them. So say you're a lawyer, okay, with you're a young lawyer and you want to say start a practice around media and entertainment law. You go find startups. You tell them that for a month, this is actually an exercise, that for a month I will come and to your office 3 days, 3 hours every week. Say Monday for 3 hours in the evening, I'll come. Okay, and I'll come and I'll do a legal health checkup. So I will go through your documents and try to help you to identify what are the various risk areas that you have, or what things are not in order. And for 1 month, I'll give you this free service. and will create for your next round of funding. You will be prepared that these things have to be in order, and then you can even help them. Once you have come up with a list that these documents are not there, you can even help one or two things so that they actually see how you work, what is the quality of your work, and after that they are very happy to engage you and pay for the other to get the other work done. So you
Right.
say that, when a doctor, sometimes a patient doesn't know what disease they have, and then they're fine to once. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry to cut you short. There are two things that I want to mention, and then you can add on to
Yes. Yes.
this.
Sure. Yep.
I'm glad you brought this up. The biggest problem that I see in the questions that you'd asked me earlier as to why people don't set up law firms in tier two, tier three cities is because we want to grow to be a size of an Amarchand from the day we start. Right? If we start litigating in courts, we want to be a Harish Salve or a Sori Swarabji. The day we go to court and we want five juniors behind us, we want to be rolling in money.
So basically, people are modeling themselves along the lines of either Amar Chand or Harish Salve or Ramjet Malani, and they are not thinking that, okay, where the new opportunities are. So Amar Chand is old opportunity. That opportunity existed 100 years back, not now. So right now, what's the, I think it's a role model problem. Do you think?
I think no, I think people are in a hurry to go too big too soon. Whether it's litigation practice, and I mean this for all cities, not just tier two or tier three cities. There are so many students of mine who regularly ask me, should I continue in Delhi? Should I move back to my hometown? And I always say this one very big thing is that it's a quote from of Julius Caesar that I would rather be first in a village than second in Rome. And the point is exactly that in a place like Delhi or Mumbai, you are competing against the likes of Salve, and that Salve, most respectfully, has become Harish Salve after 30 or 40 years of practice. You think you can own a Rolex right now, starting 2 years out of law school, no matter which law school you've graduated from.
It's fine if you want to, but you have to put in the work, right?
Exactly. And that's why I'm saying it takes time. You have to take it step by step. There will be clients who will dump you. There will be clients who will come and throw files on your face saying that you didn't do a good job, even though you would
But
have.
Ajar, I want to take it a step forward and say that it is not only that. It's not only being willing to work and putting in the time. I think people need to be more creative in identifying opportunities that are unaddressed. So there's a normal rule of demand and supply in capitalism that if there are things which are in under supply and there's a higher demand, there's a great opportunity, right? And
Absolutely.
I think that is where people should be focusing on, where instead of just doing something that worked for the previous generation of lawyers, previous generation of law firms, where is the innovation? That at least business model innovation. We're not talking about technological innovation, but business model innovation in terms of law firms and even identifying opportunities for that matter and coming up with solutions that actually solve problems that are not getting solved. So can you highlight some of the things in your experience that you find that uh, areas of demand is there from clients, or there are problems that businesses are facing, and there may not be any, even a area of practice may not have developed yet, but clients are facing challenges and they are not getting solutions. So if you can throw some light on that.
I fully agree with you to the extent that you've identified the problem very accurately, right? So again, creating value does not always mean only having a technical edge. So for example, if you first hand experienced a transaction, or if you know that two lawyers, senior lawyers, are sitting and talking about a transaction, hear their conversation, see what they're talking about, and if you know that they're approachable kind of people, ask them, so why are you discussing this issue, right? And I'm sure that there are many people who are willing to help, and you'll realize that there is an area where people are looking for this information. And I tell you, very often, especially from my friends in Amarchand, I get this question: what is the law in the Shops and Establishments Act in Uttarakhand with respect to schools, right? There is nothing online available. So what is the stamp duty that has to be paid on this particular transaction? Now you see there is this very niche market. But if you have that information ready, so if you're constantly updating yourself, if you're constantly pulling out fresh circulars and notifications from the government, you already have that information ready. So the next time a counsel or an outstation counsel or a client asks you, or even if the client is saying, look, I want to do this tourism activity in Ranikhet, what is the kind of subsidy that the government? If you say I'm going to look it up and get back to you, you've lost the edge. But if you say, oh, I have that document, I think it's 35% if I remember correctly, the client is yours, right? So when I say that you need to create the pie, the creating the pie comes from your own value first. And there's one thing I want to mention before we move on onto this discussion. Please don't work for money straight up. First, learn what you are going to do and be so good at it that money automatically comes to you.
Yeah, generate value basically.
Yes, I think a lot of focus, especially, and I don't blame people because I was a victim of that myself. You want to prove people wrong, right? You want to prove to the world that moving back to a smaller city is the right thing. I can do everything that a Delhi partner is doing. And I don't blame you. That's the ambition you should have.
But there is enough money. The money is not the problem, right? The only question is that can you give people value? Can you solve their problems? That's the only question.
Yes, can you offer solutions, right? It's a solution oriented practice that you need to build. And again, there are so many times that I've advised clients, don't file this case, it's not worth it. And the clients have gotten annoyed. But it's the same problem, right? If you go to a doctor with a stomach ache and he says you don't have anything, have a multivitamin, you think he's a bad doctor. But 2 years later, that client came back to me and said, I'm sorry, I let you go. I'm never going to let you go again. Because you were actually talking about my interest and not looking to make money and filing frivolous cases. So, people start realizing that you are doing something genuinely and you're working hard at it. And I know this sounds like a bit of a cliche, but there is no substitute to that hard work. There's no substitute to the sincerity you give to your client.
I just want to warn one thing is that before you put in the hard work, get your strategy right. Because I see so many people working so hard in big cities also and smaller places also, but just working in the wrong direction. It breaks my heart. Wouldn't you agree, Ajar? Don't you see that a lot of people working hard in the
Absolutely. And I've been seeing a couple of comments, especially for first generation lawyers, what do you do? And I think it stems from that. There are a lot of first generation lawyers working day in and day out, trying to make a mark. But again, like you said,
trying
Ramanuj,
to emulate some
sorry, I lost you there, Ramanuj. Could you
yeah.
repeat?
I was saying that when you say now I'm a first generation lawyer, I mean the underlying assumption is that the market is saturated.
Yes, but see, again, there is always a dearth of competent people. This is what my father keeps telling me,
But the
right?
market is not saturated. Like if today,
Exactly. The market is not saturated. It's just full, but it's not saturated.
no, it is it's like this. There's like imagine like a huge football field, okay, and there is this small box in front of the goalpost, okay, and instead of and imagine that all the lawyers, like 22 players, all standing right in front of the goal in the penalty box, okay, and the rest of the field is wide open. Nobody is going there. That's the situation with the legal practice in my view. It may be completely wrong, Ajar, but the more I speak to people, more I feel that this is the situation.
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Like I said, we are focusing on only certain things. And because we see these senior people making so much of money, even in tier two and tier three cities, we think this is what we have to do, this is what we have to emulate. A lot of times people ask, should I specialize in this? What subject should I take for my BA LLB degree? Should I do a specialization in arbitration?
I
And
think
that will
people should specialize in identifying opportunities that are unaddressed.
Absolutely. There are so many people looking for advice. Like the Maternity Benefits Act, or, the new regulations that come about, the Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act. Nobody has any advisory on it. Yes, big law firms are issuing out their newsletters and all that. But on a local level, how does that play out? Also, and this is an advantage that you can have at a local level, is what will be the political fallout of a decision, right? I mean, during this COVID crisis, a lot of my clients have been calling me and asking me, can I lay off people? And you have that government advisory there and everything there. And the question is, legally, maybe you can, but look at it politically. What if the press got a whiff of it? And you will have such a big political soup for yourself, right? So if you are in a tier 2, tier 3 city, you should understand the local dynamics of that city as well. And if you understand that, you are delivering much more than legal advice to your client. By God's grace, I have a lot of clients who are also very high up in the political ladder. And one of the feedback that I've constantly received from them is that, you ensure that there is no political fallout. We are very happy with your legal advice, but that legal advice was also given to us by other lawyers. But the value that you really create is that, it doesn't come back and hurt us later, even in terms of a political fallout.
Correct. So you are
And
giving a very comprehensive advice.
so
I think we have done a good job of identifying the opportunities and impressing on people that that there's a great opportunity and they must go for it. If and my personal thought process is that it's easier to make a law firm in a tier two city than in a tier one city. Like the opportunity is so huge, the growth is so much, it's really great. But I'm not saying easier, like it's not easy, but it's just like easier compared to trying to. Let's say you're trying to build an NCLT practice in Bombay and you're trying to build an NCLT practice in, I don't know, in like in a different city, like I don't know, like let's say uh, Bhubaneswar. It's quite different, right? It's easier. In for example, in there are so many times people can't find NCLT lawyers to appear in Guwahati. So in Guwahati, definitely right now it's much easier to set up an NCLT practice. So
I fully get that, it,
yeah,
and also, just as a thing, you don't always have to start out as a law firm. I mean, you can start out by an individual practice, an independent chamber, create value, and the more you expand, you can then consolidate into a law firm. See, for
yeah,
me, it came naturally because my parents were already in the field, right? But for first generation lawyers, I think one of the things that often gets sidelined is the requirement of a great team. A lot of times we hire people because they're from XYZ law school, because they have done XYZ moot. But I think what really gets the ball rolling is people who are ready to put in the same amount of hard work, who share the same vision with you, irrespective of the law school they're coming from. And I would really like to appreciate some of the people that who I've been working with. They study in the University of Petroleum, but
hmm,
two of my associates used to come back after college, Ankit Singh and Akansha Rathi, I should mention their names, and they used to come back after college, learn, and now they're formally joining me as associates.
right.
But the amount of hard work they were willing to put in, I didn't care for a national law school tag. It was the
Yeah, of course.
fact that they were willing to learn. And when I told them, I might not be able to pay you that much
So
because
there used to be a time when National Law University students people wanted to learn the most and work very hard on learning. I am not sure if that is the case anymore, and that's something that speaks volumes. Uh, but I mean, I think that is what matters in the end of the day. Somebody is really wanting to learn, really wanting to add value to themselves and to others. I think that makes a huge difference. There's a question, Ajar, from Sumit Kansal. Think
yeah.
seems in a smaller city you cannot specialize much. You have maternity, farm policies, stamp duty, arbitration, everything you have to do.
No,
Ah,
absolutely not. Absolutely not. Sumit, the truth is you can create your own niche. For example, as a conscious decision, I have limited my high court practice. Well, because commercial dispute practice here in Dehradun is growing leaps and bounds, right? I already have so many forums that I can't handle them. So I'm gradually specializing in one forum, right? This is exactly the traditional notion that you have to do civil and criminal or everything to be a successful lawyer. Absolutely not, right? So we are moving towards, like, I can only speak for myself here. I'm moving towards a more arbitration centric practice, right? Or a RERA or a DRT, like just commercial law practice or commercial court practice. I hardly step into the civil court. I mean, except for my clients who would want me to be there. So it's not that, what I was trying to tell you about maternity and stamp duty, etc., is those information, that kind of information is not readily available.
Sumit
So
is online.
Right.
Sumit wants to ask something. Go ahead,
Okay.
Sumit.
So, Ajar, thanks for such a wonderful session going on. I just wanted to know, having both the parents as lawyers, does it give you any benefit as compared to your peers in a smaller city? And what are the two main sources where you understand that work can come from in a commercial practice in a smaller city? Not the civil criminal, but making a niche in commercial practice. What is the biggest source to get such kind of a work in a smaller city? Because clients are not like that generally. You do not have much corporate firms. So two biggest sources for a smaller city, and if any advantage having both the parents as lawyers.
Okay, thank you, Sumit.
okay, I'll respond to that in the same way that you've asked the questions. Having parents as lawyers is both an advantage and a disadvantage. It's the same problem that Abhishek Bachchan faces because he's always compared to Amitabh Bachchan. right? So the moment you step into court,
And
the
not only
first
that, he gets no credit. It will be like, oh, if you have got this movie, it's only because of your dad, right?
exactly. So
So
then the
people,
moment you step into court, the district judge says, "Oh, आप रब साहब के बेटे हैं," and then you've lost it because now he's thinking that you're going to argue exactly like him, but that's not the point, right? And there is an advantage, yes, because well, you get to stand up in more matters, so you get more face value. But that face value can also come from going with a good senior, right? If you have a senior who trusts you with their work, that senior will always give you ample opportunity to make your own mark. So that's one. The second part of your question is how to create that enter that niche practice. Again, I think it's face value, right? A lot of it depends on being at the right time and the right place. So if you're looking at a DRT practice, you need to get into a circle where there are bank lawyers or bank impaneled lawyers or bank managers, and then you need to be visible in the DRT day in and day out, where people can see you, right? Same goes for RERA or arbitration. Obviously, there is no forum, so you can't really do that. But again, if you go to a commercial court, see what happens is usually there will be a client struggling to find his lawyer, or his senior lawyer is busy arguing somewhere else, and he's looking for some sort of help. Can you tell me if I should file this application or not? And that's your moment. That's the opportunity that Ramanuj was talking about. In that moment, in those 30 seconds, if you can impress the client with the words that are going to follow, you've created that niche, you've entered that market. The client will immediately ask you, can I have your number or your card? He may not call you, he may never call you. That's also the possibility. But sooner or later, he remembers that one person who he met in court. So next time he's in trouble, for a different matter, in my experience, they always come back. Sooner or later, they always come back. I hope that answers your question, Sunat.
yeah. So, yeah, it's working. So, Ajar, if you can just throw some light on your, how did on your business development strategies? How did you go about? Of course, as a practice matures, you don't have to do much of it maybe now. But do you still have a business development strategy, and what did it do? What was it before?
Well, the honest answer, Ramanuj, is that I did not have a strategy. Yes, I simply did one thing, which is that I did not say no to any kind of work. Whatever came
Okay,
my
but
way, I
was there
took.
any activity at least that you did some kind of
Yes, so
activity?
that's what I'm getting to. So in terms of work, I did not say no to anything. The second is that I have a passion for teaching. So I used to always take opportunities to teach people. And surprisingly, that led to a lot of business development. Because a lot of times the parents of students contacted me. Sometimes university professors put me in touch with clients. Um, but as an active business development strategy, to be very honest, I've never really, in the sense that law firms do follow a business development strategy, I've never really followed one. Teaching is my passion. I teach only for teaching's sake, not with the expectation that it's going to lead into results. But surprisingly, that did. So, I mean, if you would like to call that was my strategy.
I think excellent. That's great. I just want to share one thing that we had that worked for our students really well. So what we do is that we go through. There's a document called for every district. There's an industry report, annual and industrial report that the government releases. By looking at it, you can see in a district what are the various businesses that exist. So you get to know, okay, there are these many manufacturing companies, these many hospitals, these many etc. Like whatever activities are happening, and based on that you can actually identify what are the markets and what kind of compliances they will need, what kind of cases they may be having, and it kind of helps you to come up with a business strategy as to who you're going to start talking with and which industries you'll target. So just try it out sometimes. I remember having done an entire webinar on this, explaining the strategy sometimes, but uh, you know i I know today many of you are here looking to build your own practices in smaller cities, so thought I must share this. Download the industrial report of your district, go through it. It will give you ample ideas as to what kind of opportunities you might be able to find, and reach out to people, right? Reach out, educate them about legal issues they don't know. They need your education. So once you start educating them, that itself generates a lot of work. I know it's a lot of work. Nobody wants to do all this hard work to get clients. They just want the clients to fall in their laps, but unfortunately it doesn't work like that. Especially when you're starting out, you have to put in some some work. Okay. What report? Someone is saying what report? It's the industrial report for every district. Just Google it. Okay. Google, like, sometimes when I was actually found this while training our counselors. So when people call us and say that, in my district, it's such a small district, there's no work here. And we'll be like, really? So the counselor will go on Google and say, okay, what is your name of your district? Okay, Singrela or whatever. Okay, and then we'll put it into in Google search, download the report, and say these are the industries in your district. Are there any, like, is there anybody working on this thing? So there would be this kind of work that may be there, and are there organized lawyers catering to this? And after that, people will be like, yeah, I think there is work. Let me figure this out, right? Otherwise, they would say, there is no work in my district. Somebody
Just to
calling.
add to that, Ramanuj, I'm
Yeah.
sorry to cut you short, but reading the Economic Times alone, if you read an article about your state or your district, you know where the opportunity is, you know which companies are going to come there, right? So and again, if you already have a network, or if you know somebody common in that industry, some employee or somebody, all you have to do is make yourself visible, right?
Yeah,
There's
reach out.
always work. There's always work, and there's ample work for
Go
everyone.
meet people, send them your articles, send them some valuable information that they'll find valuable, build a relationship, right? Great.
Ramanuj, there's one thing I want to respond to. A lot of people have asked if an
Go
LLM
ahead,
from abroad helps in a tier 2 city.
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. That's interesting. Even I want to know. Yeah.
Well, let's just be very clear about a few things. Is that in court, I have never been asked which college I graduated from, and do I have a master's or not, and am I doing a PhD or not, right? In litigation practice, it's solely on how you build your case and how you practice. But what an LLM does, it gives you a deeper understanding of how transactions happen, how different ways the same litigation problem can be approached. So if you're doing an LLM, do it to grow as a person, do it to grow your own knowledge, because that is ultimately going to add value to your clients, right? I recently advised somebody on the taxation law in France, because I had done international taxation in my LLM. Obviously, it was not an in-depth thing. They already had a French law firm advising them. But just to be able to tell them, I understand the language you're speaking, right? That added a lot of value to my client, right? So an LLM should be done only for your own growth, because you want to study something more deeply. Please remember, it neither pays you more, it neither adds to your practice in terms of you getting more cases, but it makes you a better lawyer. So
But don't you think that when doctors write outside their chamber MBBS, and then they write some letters and bracket London and the bracket Berlin, then you're like, oh wow, this doctor
Well, see, that definitely it does.
it does, right?
It adds that swag factor. It adds that, oh my God, this guy's a big guy, right?
Right, right, right.
But it see it. But again, it's like establishing credentials, right?
Hmm.
I saw a lot of comments trying to distinguish between national law schools and non-national law schools. This is something that I personally feel. I don't know if everybody shares this
So in
opinion.
the end of the day, unless you're able to deliver value to your clients, nothing else works. But I think some
Yes.
signals are not too bad, especially
It's
in a
not like
market.
people who get hired from top national law schools don't get fired, right?
Of
That is the
course.
myth. That is the myth. See, ultimately it is you who has to deliver, right? So if from a non-national law school you can get me better output or generate more value than from a national law school, I would hire you. I see, the degree only establishes instant credentials, but then you have
On the subject of
to
hiring,
on this.
I
Yeah.
think I want you to take along with this. There's a question that has been coming from Sashank Shekhar. He's asking that the challenges of building a team in tier 2 city. Now I see like it's a very mature question. Clearly somebody who is hopefully building a practice. Let's invite Sashank to speak. Actually, Sashank, I'm unmuting you. Please, you can
Yeah.
speak.
Hi, Ramanuj. Thank you for taking on the question. Hi, Ajar. So I've been working as a legal advisor in Delhi. Now I shifted to Indore and I've opened my law firm. The biggest problem I'm facing is creating a team who share your vision. And in tier two cities, what I see, the sincerity aspect of young professionals who
I
are
can
coming
assure you, it's no different in tier 1 cities also.
out. So that's the problem. I think probably it is exposure issue which is happening because the kind of work young professionals do in Delhi, the same is not shared over here. Over here it's like okay, kar lenge sir, ho jayega, but they don't respond the same way you expect from them. That's the question.
Well, thank you for that, Shashank. I think it's a problem that I also struggled with for quite some time, frankly speaking, because it was very difficult. I mean, there were people who were willing to join for a couple of months and then they would go back because Delhi was more lucrative. Like I said, it was more cool. When they speak to their peers, they say, "Oh, I was with so and so in the Supreme Court or in Peace Hazari or this and that." And it was difficult to retain that crowd. But gradually, and this is something that my associates tell me, it's something that my interns tell me, is that I make it a point to interact with every intern. I want to understand the individual and what they have come to learn from me. And and the moment I start doing that, I see that people want to come back, right? So I think the most initial step in building a good team is getting to know who you're dealing with and what do they expect from you. And if you can give them what they expect from you, like a lot of people say, we never learned drafting in these big firms. So I would actually give them the entire file and ask them to draft, right? So if I do that and then they actually learn drafting, off and on I've seen people come back and they even ask me, is there a vacancy? Can I work with you for a year? And there's one thing that I want to say to all seniors personally is that if you are so competent, your junior can never take away the file from you. And if you are not that competent, that file was never yours to begin with. So I don't understand why a lot of seniors hesitate in sharing work, hesitate in giving the files to the students or the interns. And once you start doing that, when you start trusting them with your work, I think they repay you, and they repay you more than in full. Right? A lot of times I do a lot of academic activity and I trust my students to do research or teach along with me and things like that. And it comes back. They most often I feel people don't stick because of the money or the glamour or the swag. They feel if they are actually being valued by their boss or their senior. And that's something that I think helps to build a good team.
Okay, Ajay wants to ask a question.
No,
Ajay,
no, 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 no. Just not a question, Mr.
but you
Ramanuj.
want to add
Thank you very
something?
much.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to see this tier two city and talent. I have dealt with it extremely. Let me put it now. This Corona is going to change the work culture. I'm getting a lot of feedback where people would be like more comfortable in the new working style and moving to tier two city. As far as what we are facing as a lawyers about the talent in tier two, it is because I came to practice after putting 35 years in journalism. And it was common there also that we want to launch the same edition of Hamar Ujala or Hindustan Times, say from Indore or Jammu. You will not find a good designer, a good journalist, or a good sub editor. If they are good, they would like to work in Delhi and Bombay. So that challenge is not something unique to advocacy, but the way now the things are changing, I'm sure that talents will feel more happy. And personally speaking, as a journalist, I followed a strategy, worked in capital, moved back to tier 2 city, became editor very early in my career, which was not possible being the part of the large organization like HT in Delhi, and then came back to Delhi in a senior position. So I feel one can borrow from this strategy in the advocacy too.
Absolutely.
That's all I want.
I think the greatest opportunities are in tier 2 cities right now, and smart people from tier 1 cities will move to tier 2 cities, continue to do the work, take advantage of cost advantage in tier 2 cities. Great. Awesome.
Also, just to add to what Mr. Ajay said, sometimes people feel that we'll go to Supreme Court straight. Supreme Court, you don't get direct matters, right? So if you are in a tier 2 city, that client trusts you. That client will then tell you, look, I want you to handle my matter in the High Court, Delhi or Supreme Court, or someone you trust should handle it, right? So you basically build a feeder channel from tier 2 right up till Delhi. And that is how your work grows. Right, one client of mine took me for a excise appellate tribunal, and I told my client, look, I don't do excise work. I can engage somebody in Delhi who does, and they said, no, but we'll feel more comfortable if you're there. So you get my point, right? You build a feeder cadre from tier two, like Mr. Kumar said. You work in a tier one, go back to a tier two, and then the tier two starts supplying work to tier one.
Great, great. Uh, okay, so you know, I think we have overshot our time limit already. There are a lot of questions. Yash wants to ask a question. Let's bring Yash in 1 second. He has been raising his hand from a long time. Yes, Yash, ask.
Thanks for the opportunity, sir. So my question is that as COVID-19 is going on, and as soon as this COVID is complete, the work environment and the work culture in India will completely change. So, as far as we're concerned about opening the law firms in the small cities, do you think that big law firms will completely vanish all these small law firms because of video conferencings and the opportunities for independent lawyers will completely decrease?
So
Because
it's not that way. I think it's completely the other way. I will let Ajar answer that, but I will quickly share something that we have seen this happening in the USA, for example. It's not like the US law firms have taken over all the work in Florida or Texas. When, for example, Florida grew as a business district, or a lot of work happened, then you had law firms coming up in Florida, law firms coming up in Las Vegas. These were also like once a tier two cities which become tier one, and that's happening in India also. That rather there's going. I mean, please understand that it is big law firms cannot take away work from tier two cities simply because of the pricing structures, right? So there is the cost advantage is with the tier two city, the economic advantage with the tier two cities, not with the tier one city. Tier one city has existing branding, existing knowledge, existing systems, a very good mechanism in place, and it will capitalize on that, and it will continue to serve a certain kind of clients. But tier two cities have a scope for massive growth. Law firms in tier two cities have it. I mean, it's like field day right now, right? If they play it right. So Ajar, yeah, over to you.
Yes, I completely agree with Ramanuj. Also, you forget one very important and critical thing, which is who will do the work locally. If you want to get a sale deed executed, you need a counsel to go and testify before the registrar. If you want to get a permission from the collector, you need a local counsel who's going to file that permission, represent before the collector, and then get that permission for you. So, in fact, I think there's going to be a reverse thing. Now, what law firms actually, and it's a wise strategy to do, is to actually look for local counsels more, have clients in that area, and then tie up with the local councils, and nobody travels. There is just no cost of outstation travel, but the work executes, right? So everybody is going to change. Everybody is going to change because of COVID. But the one thing that remains, and again, I know, and I can't stress it enough, if you are somebody who generates value, then basically you are the well with the water. Whoever is thirsty will come to find you, right? Whether it's a big firm or a small firm, they will look for you. And if you are, and this is something that often people forget, in smaller cities or in smaller courts, a lot of how you behave matters. Like a clerk in a court will be much willing to do your work simply because you treat him with respect. A counsel coming from a big city arguing that matter, he's not going to push his file, right? So your local advantage, your local dynamics, your local politics, your local clout, that cannot be substituted by technology. See, ultimately, it's a human to human connection. If you can build that connection, you get the word of mouth. Yes, he is the lawyer you should go to. And I don't think technology can take away that human touch.
Okay, there's an important question from Mohammad Arham. He's saying that I am a law student currently in Jamia Millia, Delhi. I'm a resident of Kanpur. It's a tier two. Like he's saying that there's a great opportunity because it's the highest tax-paying city in UP. Large number of factories and tanneries, and doing export all over the world. FMCG companies worth thousands of crores, right? So if you wants to build a law firm in, or a law practice for that matter, like goal is to build a law firm, let's say, how should he get started in your opinion, Ajay?
Well, I like I said, I think the biggest challenge that comes in a small city is visibility. So the fact that you exist and you are willing to offer advice, that should come out. Now, either you do that through posts, through articles, through seminar talks, through local, if you have channels or newspapers, that's entirely up to you. right? The bigger challenge is making it known that you are there and you are competent and you can handle it, right? So that again, it goes to your question of business development more or less, Ramanuj. But that's the first step. The second step is when a client actually comes to you, it's actually delivering value, because that first client is going to tell the entire world what he thinks of you, right? Whether you are arrogant, whether you're actually competent, or it is just humbug. You created this big advertisement that you're this, little godfather in Kanpur, but you don't know anything, right? So therefore, you should be well informed. You should be well equipped. And then when that client actually starts having faith in you, he's going to tell five other people, oh, I met this guy and he's studied at Jamia. He's just come back. Let's just talk to him once. And I think that's the beginning. That's just the beginning of how, but then again, you have to sustain that professionalism, right? You can start getting clients. I think the bigger challenge is keeping them, because very soon there will be people trying to take your pie. So, and as a professional, whether it's a doctor or a lawyer, people only go by the faith they have in your abilities, right? You may have a degree from anywhere in this world, but you want to go to the lawyer you believe in. You want to go to the doctor you believe in, which is why when a junior doctor gives you the same medicine, you say, no, मुझे उन्हीं से बात करनी है, right? So it's a very personal kind of a thing. And people forget that.
The relationship. You have to build a relationship.
Professionalism is one thing, but at the end of the day, it's a human relationship. I trust you as a friend. I trust you as a lawyer. Only then I will ask you for advice.
Right. So I would also add this. So we have a course on practice development and management. So legal practice development management, and we have currently about 30 odd people are there on the course, and we work with them on building their practices and management strategies, etc. So one thing that we have seen, one of the earliest things you should do is spend time identifying unaddressed problems. Okay, that's our starting point. So what we tell them is that, okay, go meet people, go meet at least 20 people. So if you decide that I'm going to work with tanneries, great, no problem. Meet at least 20 executives from tanneries and identify what are their unresolved areas of problem, something that they're sitting on, it's painful, but they don't have a solution yet, or the solution that they have is very inefficient, okay, and they're unhappy. They will tell you, look, this is our problem with the legal system, or this is the problem we are facing. I mean, once you start having a conversation, they will tell you a lot about what problems they're facing, and you can see it's understandable that you're a new lawyer, you don't know so much, you can't compete with somebody with 10 years of experience in litigation, right? But you can learn about that problem as much as anybody knows in the world, right? That one problem, in the next 1 month, you can figure out everything about it, okay? And then you can come up with solutions and then deliver, which is why specialization is so important early on. A lot of people say, no, when you are young, don't specialize, do everything, etc. Sure, if you have the luxury, no problem. But if you want to build something quickly, if you need to start earning money quickly, if you need to start delivering value to clients quickly, you need to specialize with razor sharp focus, not even an area of problem. You can identify a problem that frequently occurs with a lot of people and come up with a solution, and you can get started that way. You will be able to pay your rent that way. You'll start to get your name out that way. So I think that's a very critical, important thing, that if you want to reach an income of 50,000 per month, it's not so difficult. Identify one or two problems which frequently occur with a lot of people, remains unresolved. I will give you an example, right? One example I can tell you right now that has worked for one of our students. So for example, a lot of companies in Delhi, Noida, Gurgaon have, and everywhere else for that matter, have problem with people not respecting their employment contracts. People sign employment agreements, and then employees treat those agreements like toilet paper, okay? Because whatever is written, they don't do any of that. Notice period breached, okay? Data misused, not returned. Then any kind of what do you call it? Non-compete, non-solicitation violated. Now, after some time in a growing organization, so these problems are not there for very stable organizations, but organizations are growing fast, hiring a lot of sales team, rapidly expanding. They face tremendous problem that competitors are taking away our people, solicitation, non-compete, the massive mess, right? So once you identify what are these right companies, you can go and tell them. So this is what we created. We went and told them that, look, I know you have these problems. we are going to solve it in this way. We are going to create this entire set of documentation. We will rewrite your employment agreement. We'll create employment policies. We'll create a process at the time of exit, what has to be done to reduce the chances of people violating the agreement, which includes an exit memo that they sign. They're given a fresh copy of the agreement just to remind them that, look, this is the agreement you signed, because most of the time they don't have it when they're leaving it. After leaving the job, nobody remembers what agreement they signed at the time of joining. So this kind of solutions followed by litigation, that okay, we decided strategically that okay, we have 10-15 such cases every year. We don't need to sue everybody. We'll sue just 2 people. Then other people will take it as an example and stop doing it. So every year we will take 2 cases and sue them. And the owners got the solution from this, right? That so the deal is that for the next 3 years you are going to pay us a retainership amount. So it is like something like 1 lakh or 2 lakhs or whatever. That depends, right, on the person. And you are going to get paid that much money. And every year I will take up 2 litigation with you to enforce your employment agreement. And that's it. It's a very simple, elegant solution. And if you go and pitch it to 100 people who are in the right category, then many of them will say yes. And this is a solution not available in the market otherwise, right? If you go to a law firm and say, okay, my employee ran away, whatever, like stole my data, they will start with like their whole jing bang of what their fees and it doesn't work for them, right? So you are giving them a very workable solution that the way the client needs it. So once you figure out the problem, you can come up with solutions like that as a creative lawyer, and that would. I mean, this is my experience with young lawyers trying to build their practice. Ajar, any comments on this?
No, I fully agree with you, Ramanuj. Again, it brings us back to value, right? If you can, everybody has a problem. If you can offer what the startups that are most successful today are, which cater to a demand, right? You just have to identify where the demand is, offer the right kind of solution, and people will buy it, right? So I think the process is very, very simple in that sense. There are many questions, all very different.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how much time we have left. Can we?
Yeah, we need to wrap up. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
what we can do perhaps is that we'll do another webinar with you sometimes, and in the meantime, maybe some of them can reach out to you through any social media or email, whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I'm most happy if people drop me an email. If that's all right with you, I can share my email address.
Yeah, please go ahead. You can just type it.
People can send me their questions there, because I would love to answer some of them. Some of them are very interesting questions. Some of them that I have very strong thoughts on as well. But again, we cannot.
Anything you want to pick, you can go ahead and pick 1 or 2.
No, I think a couple of things that was said earlier is one. Shirish said that it's about strong arm tactics and lobbying in a place like Kanpur and not so much of competence. Well, there are 2 things I want to say to that. Is one, yes, I believe what you're saying is true. I felt it locally, but then again, the challenge is growing big enough that you are the lobby. Right?
You have to beat the system. You
have to beat the system.
And it's a problem for people. Can you solve it?
Yes, and the thing is, if you do it with integrity, right? If you, there are so many times that clients will come up and tell us, oh, do you know that judge? If you know that judge, we'll engage you. I said, I don't know the judge. Even if I do, I'm not going to tell you, right? If you want to engage me for my competence, please do. I get you the result, right? As long as you keep getting your clients the result, they will believe in you, and you will soon enough become that strong force where people cannot just sideline you. It takes time. That's exactly what I'm saying, that you have to gradually build it. You cannot just think that the moment I walked into Kanpur, now I am the next Bahubali or something. I don't know, right? The last question that I want to address is something that people are asking about arbitration and tier 2 cities. Let's just talk of one basic thing. In every government contract today, there's an arbitral clause. There's an arbitration clause in every PSU contract. Where are those arbitrations happening? In your cities, in your districts, right? So just out of that, you can build a domestic arbitration practice. And I know many people who have done that, right? And if you want to take it to the next level, to an international level, again, it basically is talking about breaking into to a crowd where people start recognizing you internationally, right? So it's anything is possible as long as you're willing to give it a sincere shot and you're not in a hurry. Somebody mentioned that.
Yeah, and would you agree, Ajar? Would you agree that? Yeah.
sorry, just one point I want to wrap up very quickly. One person
Go ahead.
mentioned that
Go
internships
ahead.
don't pay stipends. And that's exactly my point. Are you in that internship to learn law, or are you in that internship to get money? Right? Your focus should be that this internship should make me a more equipped lawyer. I'm not giving my opinion on whether stipend should be paid or not. I personally believe that you should never make people work hard and not give them money, right? Because everybody deserves their share of dues. But my point is, don't work for the stipend. Work for, this is a chamber which is going to teach me arbitration. This is a chamber which is going to do XYZ. And then when you're so good, I'm telling you that people will pay you on their own. You don't even need to go and ask, right? Again, chase the knowledge in that sense rather than the money, and I think things will become easier for you. That's all that I have, Ramanuj. I know we've overshot the timeline quite a bit.
No, no, it's okay. It's okay. It's fine. So just wanted to add one thing. Of course, before we end the course, so a lot of our discussion on this conversation has been around, how to add value. And in how to add value, the thing is that how are you going to learn enough to add value? And that is where LawSikho does a lot of work. Please do check out our courses. Everybody who's there in the session would request you. I'll in the chat I will share the link also. I can see many of our students are there in this session, but others don't know. Definitely check it out. What we do is that we short circuit the learning process. What you would otherwise take many years to learn in an unsystematic, unstructured way on your own or self learning, but there is a certain kind of the system that we bring to your learning process or practical work, and we can say short in a way, I would say the progress in terms of how fast you will be learning work and how fast you'll be able to deliver value to your clients. And also we have a practice development course, and there are people in tier 2 cities who have worked with us and got tremendous results. You can see the success stories on our YouTube channel, LawSikho YouTube channel. So, or if you want it, if you want my help with that, you can reach out. I'll just share my number quickly. There's my number. So definitely, looking forward to working with many of you in the future in some of our courses. Thank you very much, and thank you, Ajar, so much for joining and sharing such amazing insights. And it's one of the webinars that I have been interviewing founders of law firms, of different law firms from different places, and but this is one of the interviews I enjoyed the most. Thank you so much. I
Thank you
learned so
so much,
much. This
Ramanuj.
was very,
Thank
very
you for
eye-opening.
inviting me and
Jayani wants to speak. Jayani Shah, she is also founder of a law firm. Let's just see what Jayani wants to say before we leave. Hi Jayani.
Hi, thank you so
You
much for this webinar. Uh, Considering that I'm in a similar situation since about 2.5 years, I can completely resonate to a lot of things as I said, and it was a good one. Like in fact, for somebody like me at my level, in fact, I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure for others it was great. Thank you.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
great. Thank
I'm
you.
very grateful to everybody who's joined. I'm very grateful to LawSikho. I mean, I remember I took a property law course for LawSikho, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and
Right.
our continued relationship is something that I cherish quite greatly. Thank you, Ramanuj, and I wish everybody all the very best, and I hope everyone stays safe.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.